All right, today what we're going to be talking about is percents and proportions. Oftentimes when we're talking about percents, we can actually find the percent of a number using a proportion, which we learned last chapter. So in this particular lesson, that's what we're going to focus on. So the first thing you need to know is in order to solve a percent proportion, you need to know how to set it up. When you set it up, you need to write the two ratios, a part to a whole, and have them equal it to each other. All right, be careful to keep your labels consistent in the numerators and denominators. The percent is always the numerator over 100, and the other fraction is part whole, okay? So that's it. If you think about it, if we have 70% and we want to put that in um, a proportion to easily solve it, we just put it as 70 over 100. And then we can equal that to whatever other fraction we're working with. All right, so here's an example of what I'm talking about. We have Sally's punch recipe used 22% cranberry juice. If she made 10 cups of punch, how much cranberry juice did she use in the recipe? Well, we know the percent of the cranberry juice she used, so we can write that as on the beginning part of our proportion. We can say 22 over 100. So I have my part over my whole, my percent over 100. And I can equal that to, well, we know we're going to need a part and a whole, so we have to figure out what we're looking for. If we know that she made 10 cups of punch in all, and we want to know just how much cranberry juice she used, we know the whole. All we're trying to figure out is the part. So in this case, we can then cross multiply. So then we're going to get 100x equals 22 times 10, which is 210, or sorry, 220. Divide both sides by 100. All right, and then simplify. We can divide 220 divided by 100. We can get rid of those, and then we're left with 22 over 10. We can even simplify that further. We can say, well, I have 11 over 5. And in this case, because we're asking how much cranberry juice she used, we can't leave it as an improper fraction because it wouldn't make sense to say, well, I have 11/5 of cranberry juice in my punch. You would actually want to turn that into a mixed number. So in that case, we're going to have 2 and 1/5. All right. Okay, so let's see. There are actually, when we're talking about these percents problems, there are actually 3 different types of percent problems. We can figure out things in 3 different ways. We have what is 40% of 20. So in that case, we are trying to find part of a whole. In this one, we have 40% of what number is 20. So in this case, we're trying to find the whole, and we know the part. And then what percent of 20 is 4? In this case, we're trying to find the percent of the part. Okay? All right, so with this knowledge of of what these 3 are, we can actually break that down and use that in some examples that we have. All right, so in this case, I have complete the proportion, then solve each problem. So I have 6% is n% of 30. So they've set up the first part of our problem here. We have n over 100, so we're trying to find the percent, equals what over what? Well, in this case, we need to figure out what's the part, what's the whole. Well, 6 in this case is the part, 30 is the whole. And then I can just cross multiply. So I'll then have 30n equals 600. Divide both sides by 30. 60 divided by 3 is 20. So in this case, it is 20%. All right, so if you guys could do number 2, 3, and 4 for me in your whisk tonight, don't worry about 5 or 6. That would be great. Set up the proportion and then solve for n. Okay. All right. And the last 3 examples we're going to work on this evening are without having the initial setup of the proportion, we're going to actually go through and figure out what the proportion would be on our own. So in this case, we have find 50% of 90. So we're trying to find a part of a whole. So we know we have 50%, or in this case 50 over 100. And we're trying to find the part, which is the numerator, of the whole, which is in this case 90. Go through, cross multiply, you'll get your answer. Okay. All right, what about number 8 is very similar to number 7, so same sort of idea. 75 over 100 equals x over 980. And then this last one, we have 60 is 30% of what number? So we know our percent, we're trying to figure out 30 over 100. And then we know that 60 is my part, so I can do 60 over x. All right. So that's all I have for you today. If you have any questions about how to find the percent of a number, just let me know and we will go into it. I'll answer your questions tomorrow. Otherwise, have a good evening.